Translated by Barton Gummere. I'm Kyle McDonald. Prelude of the founder of the Danish house. Lo, praise of the prowess of people kings of spear-armed Danes. In days long sped, we have heard, and what honor the Aethelings won. Oft shuld the chefing from squadroned foes, from many a tribe the mead bench tore, awing the earls. Since erst he lay friendless, a foundling, fate repaid him, for he waxed under welkin, in wealth he throve, till before him the folk both far and near, who housed by the whale path, heard his mandate, gave him gifts. A good king he. To him an heir was afterward born, a son in his halls, whom heaven sent to favor the folk, feeling their woe that erst they had lacked an earl for leader so long a while. The Lord endowed him, the wielder of wonder, with world's renown. Famed was this Beowulf, far flew the boast of him, son of Schuld in the Scandian lands. So becomes it a youth to quit him well with his father's friends, by fee and gift, that to aid him, aged in after days, come warriors willing. Should war draw nigh, liegemen loyal, by lauded deeds shall an earl have honor in every clan. Forth he fared at the fated moment, sturdy Schuld to the shelter of God. Then they bore him over to ocean's billow, loving clansmen, as late he charged them with wielded words, the winsome Schuld, the leader beloved, who long had ruled. In the roadstead rocked a ring-dight vessel, ice-flecked, outbound, Aetheling's barge. There laid they down their darling lord on the breast of the boat, the breaker of rings, by the mast the mighty one. Many a treasure fetched from far was freighted with him. No ship have I known so nobly dight with weapons of war and weeds of battle, with breastplate and blade. On his bosom lay a heaped hoard, that hence should go far over the flood with him floating away. No less these loaded the lordly gifts, thanes huge treasure, than those had done who in former time forth had sent him sole on the seas, a suckling child. High over his head they hoist the standard, a gold-wove banner. Let billows take him, gave him to ocean. Grave were their spirits, mournful their mood. No man is able to say in sooth, no son of the halls, no hero 'neath heaven, who harbored that freight. Hello, I'm Kyle McDonald. I'm your narrator, and welcome to Beowulf. This is free to share, so enjoy. The music has been generously provided by Mike Olsen of Danheim, whose work is inspired by Nordic folk and Viking music. I strongly recommend you visit his website and download his wonderful work at danheimmusic.com. And if you like what you hear from me and you're feeling benevolent, the best way you can support me is by going over to theblessedepic.com and purchasing a membership for the audiobook of my original novel-length epic poem, The Blessed. Also, subscribe at kylederekmcdonald.org for updates. But enough of that for now. Let's begin. 1. Now Beowulf bode in the burg of the Schuldings, leader beloved, and long he ruled in fame with all folk, since his father had gone away from the world, till awoke an heir, haughty Halfdana, who held through life, sage and sturdy, the Schuldings glad. Then one after one there woke to him, to the chieftain of clansmen, children 4, Heorogar, then Hrothgar, then Halha brave, and a daughter who they say was Onella's queen, the Hrothgar-Schilfing's helpmate dear. To Hrothgar was given such glory of war, such honor of combat, that all his kin obeyed him gladly, till great grew his band of youthful comrades. It came in his mind to bid his henchmen a hall uprear, a master mead-house, mightier far than ever was seen by the sons of earth, and within it, then to old and young he would all allot that the Lord had sent him, save only the land and the lives of his men. Wide, I heard, was the work commanded, for many a tribe this mid-earth round, to fashion the folkstead. It fell, as he ordered, in rapid achievement that ready it stood there, of halls the noblest. Heorot he named it, whose message had might in many a land. Not reckless of promise, the rings he dealt, treasure at banquet. There towered the hall, high, gabled, wide. the hot surge waiting of furious flame. Not far was that day when father and son-in-law stood in feud, for warfare and hatred that woke again. With envy and anger, an evil spirit endured the dole in his dark abode, that he heard each day the din of revel high in the hall. Their harps rang out, clear song of the singer. He sang who knew tales of the early time of man, how the Almighty made the earth, fairest fields enfolded by water, set, triumphant sun and moon for a light to lighten the land dwellers, and braided bright the breast of earth with limbs and leaves, made life for all of mortal beings that breathe and move. So lived the clansmen in cheer and revel, a winsome life, till one began to fashion evils, that field of hell. Grendel, this monster grim was called, much reaver mighty, in moorland living, in fen and fastness. Fief of the giants, the hapless wight a while had kept since the Creator his exile doomed. On kin of Cain was the killing avenged by sovereign God. For slaughtered Abel, ill fared his feud, and far was he driven for the slaughter's sake from sight of men. Of Cain awoke all that woeful breed, Ettins and elves and evil spirits, as well as the giants that warred with God weary while. But their wage was paid them. 2. Went he forth to find at fall of night that haughty house, and heed wherever the ringdanes out-revelled to rest had gone. Found within it the atheling band asleep after feasting, and fearless of sorrow of human hardship. Unhallowed wight, grim and greedy, he grasped betimes, wrathful, reckless, from resting places 30 of the thanes, and thence he rushed, fain of his fell spoil, faring homeward, laden with slaughter, his lair to seek. Then at the dawning, as day was breaking, the might of Grendel to men was known. Then after wassail was wail uplifted, loud moan in the morn. The mighty chief, atheling excellent, on blithe sat, labored in woe for the loss of his thanes, when once had been traced the trail of the fiend, spirit accursed. Too cruel that sorrow, too long, too loathsome, not late the respite, with night returning, anew began ruthless murder. He recked no whit, firm in his guilt of the feud and crime. They were easy to find, who elsewhere sought in room remote their rest at night. Bed in the bowers, when that bale was shown, was seen in sooth with surest token. The hall thanes hate. Such held themselves far and fast who the fiend outran, thus ruled unrighteous and raged his fill, one against all, until empty stood that lordly building, and long it bode so. 12 years tide, the trouble he bore, sovereign of shouldings, sorrows in plenty, boundless cares. There came unhidden tidings true to the tribes of men, in sorrowful songs, how ceaselessly Grendel harassed Hrothgar, what hate he bore him, what murder and massacre many a year feud unfading, refused consent to deal with any of Daneland's earls, make pact of peace, or compound for gold. Still less did the wise men ween to get great fee for the feud from his fiendish hands. But the evil one ambushed old and young, death's shadow dark, and dogged them still, lured or lurked in the livelong night of misty moorlands. Men may say not where the haunts of these hell runes be. Such heaping of horrors, the hater of men, lonely roamer, wrought unceasing, harassing heavy. Over Heorot he lorded, gold bright hall, in gloomy nights, and never could the prince approach his throne. 'Twas judgment of God, or have joy in his hall. Sore was the sorrow to Scylding's friend, heart-rending misery. Many nobles sat assembled, and searched out counsel how it were best for bold-hearted men against harassing terror to try their hand, whiles they bowed in their heathen fanes altar offerings, asked with words that the slayer of souls would succor give them for the pain of their people. Their practice this, their heathen hope. 'Twas hell they thought of in mood of their mind. Almighty they knew not, doomsman of deeds and dreadful lord, nor heaven's helmet heeded they ever, wielder of wonder. Woe for that man who in harm and hatred hales his soul to fiery embraces. Nor favor, nor change awaits he ever, but well for him that after death they may draw to his Lord, and friendship find in the Father's arms. 3. Thus seethed unceasing the son of Halfdana with the woe of these days. Not wisest men assuaged his sorrow, too sore the anguish, loathly and long, that lay on his folk, most baneful of burdens, and bales of the night. This heard in his home Huyelak's thane, great among Geats of Grendel's doings. He was the mightiest man of valor in that same day of this our life. Stalwart and stately, a stout wave-walker he bade make ready. Yon battle king, said he, far over the swan road he fain would seek, the noble monarch who needed men. The prince's journey by prudent folk was little blamed. Though they loved him dear, they whetted the hero and hailed good omens. And now the bold one from the bands of Geats comrades chose, the keenest of warriors ever he could find. With 14 men the sea wood he sought, and sailor proved, led them on to the land's confines. Time had now flown, afloat was the ship, boat under bluff. On board they climbed, warriors ready. Waves were churning sea with sand. The sailors bore on the breast of the bark their bright array, their mail and weapons. The men pushed off on its willing way, the well-braced craft, then moved over the waters by might of the wind that bark like a bird with breast of foam, till in season due, on the second day, the curved prow such course had run, that sailors now could see the land, sea cliffs shining, steep high hills, headlands broad. Their haven was found, their journey ended. Up then quickly the waders' clansmen climbed ashore, anchored their seawood with armor clashing and gear of battle. God they thanked for passing in peace over the paths of the sea. Now saw from the cliff a Scylding clansman, a warden that watched the waterside, how they bore o'er the gangway glittering shields, war gear in readiness. Wonder seized him to know what manner of men they were. Straight to the strand his steed he rode, Hrothgar's henchman. With hand of might he shook his spear, and spake in parley. Who are ye then, ye armed men, mailed folk, that yon mighty vessel have urged thus over the ocean ways? Here o'er the waters, a warden I, sentinel set o'er the sea march here, lest any foe to the folk of Danes with harrying fleet should harm the land. No aliens ever at ease thus bore them, linden wielders, yet word of leave clearly ye lack from clansmen here, my folk's agreement. A greater ne'er saw I of warriors in wood than is one of you, yon hero in harness. No henchman he, worthied by weapons, if witness his features, his peerless presence. I pray you, though, tell your folk and home, lest hence ye fare suspect to wander your way as spies in Danish land. Now, dwellers afar, ocean travelers, take from me simple advice. The sooner the better I hear of the country whence ye came. 4. To him the stateliest spake in answer, the warrior's leader, his word hoard unlocked. We are by kin of the clan of Geats, and Huyelak's own hearth-fellows we. To folk afar was my father known, noble Atheling Edgethale named. Full of winters he fared away aged from earth. He is honored still through the width of the world by wise men all. To thy lord and liege in loyal mood we hasten hither, to Halfdana's son, people protector, be pleased to advise us. To that mighty one come we on mickle errand, to the lord of the Danes, nor deem I right that aught be hidden. We hear, thou knowest if sooth it is, the sang of men that amid the Scyldings a scathing monster, dark ill-doer in dusky nights shows terrific his rage unmatched, hatred and murder. To Hrothgar I in greatness of soul would succor bring, so the wise and brave may worst his foes. If ever the end of ills is fated, of cruel contest if cure shall follow, and the boiling care waves cooler grow, else ever afterward anguish days he shall suffer in sorrow, while stands in place high on its hill, that house unpeered. Astride his steed, The strandward answered, clansman unquailing. The keen-souled Thane must be skilled to sever and sunder duly words and works, if he well intends. I gather this band is graciously bent to the shielding's master. March then, bearing weapons and weeds the way I show you. I will bid my men your boat meanwhile to guard for fear lest foemen come. Your new-tarred ship by shore of ocean faithfully watching till once again it waft o'er the waters those well-loved Thanes. Winding-necked wood, to waders' bounds, heroes such as the hest of fate shall succor and save from the shock of war. They bent them to march. The boat lay still, fettered by cable and fast at anchor, broad-bosomed ship. Then shone the boars over the cheek-guard, chased with gold, keen and gleaming. Guard had kept o'er the man of war, as marched along heroes in haste, till the hall they saw, broad of gable and bright with gold. That was the fairest, mid folk of earth, of houses neath heaven, where Hrothgar lived, and the gleam of it lightened over lands afar. The sturdy shieldsman showed what bright burg of the boldest bade them go straightway thither. His steed then turned, hardy hero, and hailed them thus. "'Tis time that I fare from you. Father Almighty in grace and mercy guard you well, safe in your seekings. Seaward I go, 'gainst hostile warriors hold my watch." 5. Stone bright the street, it showed the way to the crowd of clansmen. Corselets glistened hand-forged hard. On their harness bright the steel rings sang, as they strode along in mail of battle, and marched to the hall. There, weary of ocean, the wall along they sat their bucklers, their broad shields down, and bowed them to bench. The breastplates clanged war gear of men. Their weapons stacked spears of the seafarers stood together. Grey-tipped ash, that iron band was worthily weaponed. A warrior proud asked of the heroes their home and kin. "Whence now bear ye burnished shields, harness grey and helmets grim, spears in multitude? Messenger I, Hrothgar's herald. Heroes so many ne'er met I as strangers of mood so strong. 'Tis plain that for prowess, not plunged into exile, for high-hearted valor, Hrothgar ye seek." Him the sturdy in war bespake with words. Proud Earl of the waders answer made, hardy neath helmet. "Who yelacks we fellows at board? I am Beowulf named. I am seeking to say to the son of Halfdan this mission of mine. To thy master lord, the doughty prince, if he deign at all grace that we greet him, the good one now." Wulfgar spake, the Wendels chieftain, whose might of mind to many was known, his courage and counsel. "The king of Danes, the Scyldings' friend, I fain will tell. The breaker of rings, as the boon thou askest, the famed prince of thy faring hither, and swiftly after such answer bring, as the doughty monarch may deign to give." I then in haste to where Hrothgar sat white-haired and old, his earls about him, till the stout thane stood at the shoulder there of the Danish king. Good courtier he. Wulfgar spake to his winsome lord, "Hither have fared to thee far-come men over the paths of ocean, people of Geatland, and the stateliest there by his sturdy band is Beowulf named. This boon they seek, that they, my master, may with thee have speech at will, nor spurn their prayer to give them hearing. Gracious Hrothgar, in weeds of the warrior worthy they methinks of our liking. Their leader most surely, our hero that hither his henchmen has led." 6. Hrothgar answered, helmet of Scyldings, "I knew him of yore in his youthful days. His aged father was Ecgtheow named, to whom at home gave Hrethel the Geat, his only daughter. Their offspring bold fares hither to seek this steadfast friend, and seamen too have said me this, who carried my gifts to the Geatish court thither for thanks. He has 30 men's heft of grasp in the grip of his hand, the bold in battle. Blessed God, out of his mercy this man hath sent to Danes of the West, as I ween indeed against horror of Grendel. I hope to give the good youth gold for his gallant thought. Be thou in haste, and bid them hither, clan of kinsmen, to come before me. And add this word, they are welcome guests to folk of the Danes." To the door of the hall Wulfgar went, and the word declared, "To you this message my master sends, East Danes' king, that your kin he knows, hardy heroes, and hails you all welcome. hither over the waves of the sea. Ye may wend your way in war attire, and under helmets Hrothgar greet. But let here the battle shields bide your parley, and wooden war shafts wait its end. Up rose the mighty one, ringed with his men, brave band of thanes. Some bode without, battle gear guarding, as bade the chief. Then hied that troop where the herald led them. Under Heorot's roof the hero strode, hardy 'neath helm, till the hearth he neared. Beowulf spake, his breastplate gleaming, war net woven by wit of the smith. Though Hrothgar hail, Hugelax's I, kinsman and follower, fame aplenty have I gained in youth. These Grendel deeds I heard in my homeland heralded clear. Seafarers say how stands this hall, of buildings best, for your band of thanes empty and idle, when evening sun in the harbor of heaven is hidden away. So my vassals advised me will, brave and wise, the best of men, O sovereign Hrothgar, to seek thee here for my nerve and my might they knew full well. Themselves had seen me from slaughter come blood-flecked from foes, where 5 I bound, and that wild brood worsted. In the waves I slew nickers by night, in need and peril avenging the waders, whose woe they sought, crushing the grim ones. Grendel now, monster cruel, be mine to quell in single battle. So from thee, thou sovereign of the shining Danes, Scylding's bulwark, a boon I seek, and friend of the folk, refuse it not, O warrior's shield. Now I've wandered far, that I alone with my liegemen here, this hardy band, may Heorot purge. More I hear, that the monster dire in his wanton mood, of weapons recks not, hence shall I scorn, so Hugelax stay, king of my kindred kind to me, brand or buckler to bear in the fight, gold-colored targe. But with grip alone must I front the fiend and fight for life, foe against foe. Then faith be his in the doom of the Lord whom death shall take. Fain, I ween, if the fight he win, in this hall of gold my Geatish band will he fearless eat, as oft before, my noblest thanes. Nor needst thou then to hide my head, for his shall I be, dyed in gore, if death must take me. And my blood-covered body he'll bear as prey, ruthless devour it, the roamer lonely, with my lifeblood redden his lair in the fen. No further for me needst food prepare. To Hugelax send if Hild should take me, best of war weeds, warding my breast armor excellent, heirloom of Herethel and work of Wyland. Fares weird as she must. 7. Hrothgar spake the Scylding's helmet. For fight, defensive friend, my Beowulf, to succor and save. Thou hast sought us here. Thy father's combat a feud enkindled when Hatholaf with hand he slew among the Wolfings. His Wederkin for horror of fighting feared to hold him. Fleeing, he sought our South Dane folk over surge of ocean, the honor Scyldings, when first I was ruling the folk of Danes, wielded, youthful, this widespread realm, this hoard hold of heroes. Heorogar was dead, my elder brother, had breathed his last, half Dana's bairn. He was better than I. Straightway the feud with thee I settled, to the Wolfing sent, o'er watery ridges, treasures olden. Oaths he swore me. Sore is my soul to say to any of the race of man what ruth for me and Heorot, Grendel with hate hath wrought. What sudden harryings! All folk fail me, my warriors wane, for weird hath swept them into Grendel's grasp. But God is able this deadly foe from his deeds to turn. Boasted full oft, as my beer they drank, earls o'er the ale cup, armed men, that they would bide in the beer hall here, Grendel's attack with terror of blades. Then was this mead house at morning tide dyed with gore. When the daylight broke, all the boards of the benches blood besprinkled, gory the hall. I had heroes the less, doughty dear ones that death had reft. But sit to the banquet, unbind thy words, hardy hero, as heart shall prompt thee. Gathered together, the Geatish men in the banquet hall on bench assigned, sturdy-spirited, sat them down, hardy-hearted. A henchman attended, carried the carven cup in hand, served the clear mead. Oft minstrels sang blithe in Heorot. Heroes revelled, no dearth of warriors, Wader and Dane. 8 and 9. Unferth spake, the son of Ecglaf, who sat at the feet of the Scyldings' lord, unbound the battle runes. Beowulf's quest sturdy seafarers sorely galled him. Ever he envied that other men should more achieve in Middle-earth of fame under heaven than he himself. Art thou that Beowulf, Breca's rival, who emulous swam on the open sea, when for pride the pair of you proved the floods, and wantonly dared in waters deep to risk your lives? No living man, or leaf or loath, from your labor dire could you dissuade from swimming the main. Ocean tides with your arms ye covered, with strenuous hands the sea streets measured, swam o'er the waters. Winter's storm rode the rough waves. In realm of sea a sennight strove ye. In swimming he topped thee, had more of main. Him at morning tide billows bore the battling Ramus, whence he hied to his home so dear beloved of his liegemen, to land of Bronning's fastness fair, where his folk he ruled town and treasure. In triumph o'er thee Beanston's ban his boast achieved. So ween I for thee a worse adventure, though in buffet of battle thou brave hast been, in struggle grim. If Grendel's approach thou darest await through the watch of night. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. What a deal hast uttered, dear my Unferth, drunken with beer, of Breckenau, told of his triumph. Truth, I claim it, that I had more of might in the sea than any man else, more ocean endurance. We twain had talked in time of youth and made our boast. We were merely boys, striplings still, to stake our lives far at sea, and so we performed it. Naked swords as we swam along, we held in hand, with hope to guard us against the whales. Not a whit from me could he float afar o'er the flood of waves, haste o'er the billows, nor him I abandoned. Together we twain, on the tides of boat 5 nights full, till the flood divided us. Churning waves and chillest weather, darkling night, and the northern wind ruthless rushed on us. Rough was the surge. Now the wrath of the sea fish rose apace. Yet me, 'gainst the monsters my mailed coat hard and hand-linked, help afforded. Battle sock braided my breast to ward, garnished with gold. There grasped me firm and haled me to the bottom the hated foe, with grimmest grip. 'Twas granted me, though, to pierce the monster with point of sword, with blade of battle. Huge beast of the sea was whelmed by the hurley through hand of mine. Me thus often the evil monsters thronging threatened. With thrust of my sword, the darling, I dealt them due return. Nowise had they bliss from their booty then to devour their victim. Vengeful creatures seated to banquet at bottom of sea. But at break of day, by my brand sore hurt, on the edge of ocean up they lay, put to sleep by the sword. And since by them on the fathomless seaways sailor folk are never molested. Light from east came bright God's beacon. The billows sank so that I saw the sea cliffs high, windy walls. For weird oft saveth Earl undoomed if he doubt he be. And so it came that I killed with my sword 9 of the Nicors. Of night-fought battles ne'er heard I a harder 'neath heaven's dome, nor adrift on the deep a more desolate man. Yet I came unharmed from that hostile clutch. Though spent with swimming, the sea upbore me, flood of the tide on Finnish land, the welling waters. No wise of thee have I heard men tell such terror of falchions, bitter battle. Breca ne'er yet, not one of you pair, in the play of war such daring deed has done at all with bloody brand. I boast not of it, though thou wast the bane of thy brethren dear, thy closest kin, whence curse of hell awaits thee, well as thy wit may serve. For I say in sooth, thou son of Ecglaf, never had Grendel these grim deeds wrought, monster dire, on thy master dear, in Heorot such havoc, if heart of thine were as battle-bold as thy boast is loud. But he has found no feud will happen. From sword-clash dread of your Danish clan he vaunts him safe from the victor Schuldings. He forces pledges, favors none of the land of Danes, but lustily murders, fights and feasts, nor feud he dreads from Spear-Dane men. But speedily now shall I prove him the prowess and pride of the Geats, shall bid him battle. Blithe to meet go he that listeth, when light of dawn this morrow morning o'er men of earth, Etherob's sun from the soul shall beam. Joyous then was the jewel-giver, hoar-haired war-brave. Help awaited the bright Dane's prince. From Beowulf hearing, folk's good shepherd, such firm resolve. Then was laughter of liegemen loud, resounding with winsome words. Came Waltheof forth, queen of Hrothgar, heedful of courtesy, gold-decked, greeting the guests in hall. And the high-born lady handed the cup first to the East Danes' heir and warden, bade him be blithe at the beer carouse, the land's beloved one. Lustily took he banquet and beaker, battle-famed king. Through the hall then went the helming's lady, to younger and older, everywhere carried the cup, till come the moment when the ring-graced queen, the royal-hearted, to Beowulf bore the beaker of mead. She greeted the Geats' lord, God she thanked in wisdom's words, that her will was granted, that at last on a hero her hope could lean for comfort and terrors. The cup he took, hardy in war, from Waltheo's hand, and answer uttered the eager for combat. Beowulf spake, bairn of Edgethale. This was my thought, when my things and I bent to the ocean and anchored our boat, that I would work the will of your people fully, or fighting fall in death in fiend's grip fast. I am firm to do an earl's brave deeds, or end the days of this life of mine in the mead hall here. Well, these words to the woman seemed Beowulf's battle boast. Bright with gold, the stately dame by her spouse sat down. Again, as erst, began in hall warriors' wassail and words of power, the proud bands revel, till presently the son of Halfdanr hastened to seek rest for the night. He knew there waited fight for the fiend in that festal hall, when the sheen of the sun they saw no more, and dusk of night sank darkling nigh, and shadowy shapes came striding on, wan under welkin. The warriors rose. Man to man, he made harangue, Hrothgar to Beowulf. Bade him hail, let him wield the wine hall. A word, he added. Never to any man erst I trusted since I could heave up hand and shield this noble Dane hall till now to thee. Up now and hold this house unpeered. Remember thy glory, thy might declare. Watch for the foe. No wish shall fail thee if thou biddest the battle with bold won life. 10. Then Hrothgar went with his hero train, defensive Schuldings forth from hall. Fain would the warlord Waltheow seek couch of his queen. The king of glory against this Grendel a guard had set, so heroes heard, a hall defender, who warded the monarch and watched for the monster. In truth, the Geats prince gladly trusted his mettle, his might the mercy of God. Cast off then his corslet of iron, helmet from head. To his henchman gave, choicest of weapons, the well-chased sword, bidding him guard the gear of battle. Spake then his vaunt the valiant man, Beowulf Geat, ere the bed be sought. Of force and fight no feebler I count me, in grim war deeds, than Grendel deems him. Not with the sword then, to sleep of death his life will I give, though it lie in my power. No skill is his to strike against me, my shield to hew though he hardy be, bold in battle. We both this night shall spurn the sword, if he seek me here unweaponed for war. Let wisest God, sacred Lord, on which side soever doom decree as he deemeth right. Reclined then the chieftain, and cheek pillows held the head of the earl, while all about him seamen hardy on hall beds sank. None of them thought that thence their steps to the folk and fastness that fostered them to the land they loved would lead them back. Full well they wist that on warriors many battle death seized in the banquet hall of Danish clan, but comfort and help, war wheel weaving to waiter folk the master gave that, by might of one, over their enemy all prevailed by single strength. In sooth, 'tis told that highest God o'er humankind hath wielded ever. Through one night striding came the walker in shadow. Warriors slept whose hest was to guard the gabled hall, all save one. 'Twas widely known that against God's will the ghostly ravager him could not hurl to haunts of darkness. Wakeful, ready, with warrior's wrath, bold he bided the battle's issue. 11. Then, from the moorland by misty crags, with God's wrath laden, Grendel came. The monster was minded of mankind now, sundry to seize in the stately house. Under welkin he walked, till the wine palace there, gold hall of men, he gladly discerned, flashing with fretwork. Not first time this, that he the home of Hrothgar sought. Yet ne'er in his life day, late or early, such hardy heroes, such hall thanes found. To the house the warrior walked apace, parted from peace. The portal opened, though with forged bolts fast, when his fists had struck it, and baleful he burst in his blatant rage the house's mouth. All hastily then o'er fair paved floor the fiend trod on. Ireful he strode. There streamed from his eyes fearful flashes like flame to see. He spied in hall the hero band, kin and clansmen clustered asleep, hardy liegemen. Then laughed his heart, for the monster was minded, ere morn should dawn, savage to sever the soul of each life from body, since lusty banquet waited his will. But weird forbade him to seize any more of men on earth after that evening. Eagerly watched Huyulak's kinsman, his cursed foe, how he would fare in fell attack. Not that the monster was minded to pause. Straightway he seized a sleeping warrior for the first and tore him fiercely asunder. The bone frame bit, drank blood in streams, swallowed him piecemeal. Swiftly thus the lifeless corse was clear devoured, e'en hands and feet. Then farther he hied, for the hardy hero with hand he grasped, felt for the foe with fiendish claw, for the hero reclining, who clutched it boldly, prompt to answer, propped on his arm. Soon then saw that shepherd of evils that never he met in this middle world. In the ways of earth another wight with heavier hand grip. At heart he feared, sorrowed in soul, none the sooner escaped. Fain would he flee, his fastness seek, the den of devils. No doings now such as oft he had done in days of old. Then bethought him the hardy Huyulak thane of his boast at evening. Up he bounded, grasped firm his foe, whose fingers cracked. The fiend made off, but the earl close followed. The monster meant, if he might at all, to fling himself free and far away fly to the fens. Knew his fingers' power in the grip of the grim one. Gruesome march to Heorot this monster of harm had made. Din filled the room. The Danes were bereft, castle dwellers and clansmen all, earls of their ale. Angry were both those savage hall guards. The house resounded. Wonder it was the wine hall firm in the strain of their struggle stood. To earth the fair house fell not. Too fast it was within and without by its iron bands craftily clamped. Though there crashed from sill many a mead bench, men have told me, gay with gold, where the grim foes wrestled. So well had weened the wisest Scyldings that not ever at all might any man that bone-decked brave house break asunder crushed by craft, unless clasp of fire and smoke engulfed it. Again uprose din redoubled. Danes of the north with fear and frenzy were filled, each one who from the wall that wailing heard, God's foes sounding his grisly song, cry of the conquered, clamorous pain from captive of hell. Too closely held him he who of men in might was strongest in that same day of this our life. 12. Not in any wise would the earl's defense suffer that slaughterous stranger to live, useless deeming his days and years to men on earth. Now many an earl of Beowulf, brandished blade ancestral, feigned the life of their lord to shield their praised prince if power were theirs. Never they knew, as they neared the foe, hardy-hearted heroes of war, aiming their swords on every side the accursed to kill. No keenest blade, no fairest of falchions fashioned on earth could harm or hurt that hideous fiend. He was safe by his spells from sword of battle, from edge of iron. Yet his end and parting on that same day of this our life woeful should be, and his wandering soul far off flit to the fiend's domain. Soon he found, who in former days, harmful in heart and hated of God, on many a man such murder wrought, that the frame of his body failed him now. From him the keen-souled kinsman of who ye like held in hand. Hateful alive was each to other. The outlaw dire took mortal hurt. A mighty wound showed on his shoulder, and sinews cracked, and the bone frame burst. To Beowulf now the glory was given, and Grendel thence death-sick his den in the dark moor sought noisome abode. He knew too well that here was the last of life, an end of his days on earth. To all the Danes by that bloody battle the boon had come. From ravage had rescued the roving stranger Hrothgar's hall. The hardy and wise one had purged it anew. His night work pleased him, his deed and its honor. To Eastern Danes had the valiant Geat his vaunt made good. All their sorrow and ills assuaged, their bale of battle borne so long, and all the dole they erst endured pain aplenty. 'Twas proof of this, when the hardy in fight a hand laid down, arm and shoulder, all, indeed, of Grendel's grip, 'neath the gabled roof. 13. Many at morning, as men have told me, warriors gathered the gift hall round, folk leaders faring from far and near, o'er wide-stretched ways the wonder to view, trace of the traitor. Not troublous seemed the enemy's end to any man who saw by the gait of the graceless foe how the weary-hearted, away from thence, baffled in battle and band, his steps death-marked dragged to the devil's mere. Bloody the billows were boiling there, turbid the tide of tumbling waves horribly seething, with sword blood hot. By that doomed one died, who in den of the moor laid forlorn his life adown, his heathen soul, and hell received it. Home then rode the hoary clansmen from that merry journey, and many a youth on horses white, the hardy warriors back from the mere. Then Beowulf's glory eager they echoed, and all averred that from sea to sea, or south or north, there was no other in earth's domain under vault of heaven, more valiant found, of warriors none more worthy to rule. On their lord beloved they laid no slight, gracious Hrothgar, a good king he. From time to time, the tried in battle their grey steeds set to gallop amain, and ran a race when the road seemed fair. From time to time, a thane of the king, who had made many vaunts and was mindful of verses, stored with sagas and songs of old, bound word to word in well-knit rhyme, welded his lay. This warrior soon of Beowulf's quest right cleverly sang, and artfully added an excellent tale, in well-ranged words, of the warlike deeds he had heard in saga of Siamund. Strange the story, he said it all, the Walsing's wanderings wide, his struggles which never were told to tribes of men, the feuds and the frauds save to Fitela only, when of these doings he deigned to speak, uncle to nephew, as ever the twain stood side by side in stress of war, and multitude of the monster kind they had felled with their swords. Of Siamund grew, when he passed from life, no little praise, for the doughty in combat a dragon killed, that herded the horde. Under hoary rock the atheling dared the deed alone, fearful quest, nor was Fitela there. Yet so it befell, his falchion pierced that wondrous worm. On the wall it struck, best blade. The dragon died in its blood. Thus had the dread one by daring achieved over the ring horde to rule at will, himself to pleasure. A sea boat he loaded, and bore on its bosom the beaming gold. Son of Wales, the worm was consumed. He had of all heroes the highest renown among races of men, this refuge of warriors, for deeds of daring that decked his name. Since the hand and heart of Heremod grew slack in battle, he, swiftly banished to mingle with monsters at mercy of foes, to death was betrayed. for torrents of sorrow had lamed him too long. A load of care to earls and aethelings all he proved. Oft indeed, in earlier days, for the warrior's wayfaring wise men mourned, who had hoped of him help from harm and bale, and had thought their sovereign son would thrive, follow his father, his folk protect, the hoard and the stronghold, hero's land, home of Scyldings. But here, Thane said, the kinsman of Huyalak kinder seemed to all. The other was urged to crime. And afresh to the race, the fallow roads by swift steeds measured. The morning sun was climbing higher. Clansmen hastened to the high-built hall, those hardy-minded, the wonder to witness. Warden of treasure, crowned with glory, the king himself, with stately band from the bride bower strode, and with him the queen and her crowd of maidens measured the path to the mead house fair. 14. Hrothgar spake. To the hall he went, stood by the steps the steep roof saw, garnished with gold, and Grendel's hand. For the sight I see to the sovereign ruler be speedy thanks. A throng of sorrows I have borne from Grendel, but God still works wonder on wonder, the warden of glory. It was but now that I nevermore for woes that weighed on me waited help long as I lived, when laved in blood stood sword gore stained this stateliest house. Widespread woe for wise men all, who had no hope to hinder ever foes infernal, and fiendish sprites from havoc in hall. This hero now, by the wielder's might, a work has done, that not all of us erst could ever do by wile and wisdom. No, well can she say whoso of women this warrior bore among sons of men, if still she liveth, that the God of the ages was good to her in the birth of her bairn. Now, Beowulf, thee of heroes best, I shall heartily love as mine own, my son. Preserve thou ever this kinship new. Thou shalt never lack wealth of the world that I wield as mine. For oft for less have I largesse showered my precious hoard on a punier man, less stout in struggle. Thyself hast thou fulfilled such deeds, that thy fame shall endure through all the ages, as ever he did. Well may the wielder reward thee still. Beowulf spake, bairn of Edgethale. This work of war most willingly we have fought, this fight and fearlessly dared force of the foe. Fain too, were I hadst thou but seen himself, what time the fiend in his trappings tottered to fall. Swiftly I thought in strongest grip on his bed of death to bind him down, that he in the hank of this hand of mine should breathe his last. But he broke away, him I might not, the Maker willed not, hindered from flight, and firm enough hold the life-destroyer. Too sturdy was he, the ruthless in running. For rescue, however, he left behind him his hand in pledge, arm and shoulder, nor aught of help could the cursed one thus procure at all. None the longer liveth he, loathsome fiend, sunk in his sins, but sorrow holds him tightly grasped in grip of anguish, in baleful bonds, where bide he must, evil outlaw, such awful doom as the mighty Maker shall mete him out. More silent seemed the son of Ecglaf in boastful speech of his battle deeds, since aethelings all, through the earl's great prowess, beheld that hand, on the high roof gazing, foemen's fingers, the forepart of each of the sturdy nails to steel was likest, heathen's hand-spear, hostile warrior's claw uncanny. 'Twas clear, they said, that him no blade of the brave could touch, how keen soever, or cut away that battle hand bloody from baneful foe. 15. There was hurry and hest in Heorot now for hands to bedeck it, and dense was the throng of men and women the wine hall to cleanse, the guest room to garnish. Gold gay shone the hangings that were wove on the wall, and wonders many to delight each mortal that looks upon them, though braced within by iron bands. That building bright was broken sorely. Rent were its hinges, the roof alone held safe and sound, when seared with crime, the fiendish foe his flight essayed of life despairing. No light thing that, the flight for safety, Essay it who will, forced of fate he shall find his way to the refuge ready for race of man, for soul possessors and sons of earth, and there his body on bed of death shall rest after revel. Arrived was the hour when to hall proceeded Halfdane's son. The king himself would sit to banquet. There heard I of host in haughtier throng more graciously gathered round giver of rings. Bowed then to bench those bearers of glory, fain of the feasting. Featly received many a mead cup the mighty in spirit, kinsmen who sat in the sumptuous hall. Hrothgar and Hrothulf, Heorot now was filled with friends. The folk of Scyldings never yet had tried the traitor's deed. To Beowulf gave the bairn of Halfdene a gold-wove banner, guerdon of triumph, broidered battle flag, breastplate and helmet, and a splendid sword was seen of many borne to the brave one. Beowulf took cup in hall. For such costly gifts he suffered no shame in that soldier throng. For I heard of few heroes in heartier mood, with for such gifts so fashioned with gold on the ale bench honoring others thus. O'er the roof of the helmet high, a ridge wound with wires, kept ward o'er the head, lest the relict of files should fierce invade, sharpen the strife, when that shielded hero should go to grapple against his foes. Then the earl's defense on the floor bade lead coursers 8, with carven headgear, adown the hall. One horse was decked with a saddle, all shining and set in jewels. 'Twas the battle seat of the best of kings, when to play of swords the son of Halfdene was fain to fare. Ne'er failed his valor in the crush of combat when corpses fell. To Beowulf over them both then gave the refuge of Ingwains right and power, o'er war steeds and weapons, wished him joy of them. Manfully thus the mighty prince hoard guard for heroes, that hard fight repaid with steeds and treasure contemned by none, who is willing to say the sooth aright. 16. And the lord of earls to each that came with Beowulf over the briny ways, an heirloom there at the ale bench gave, precious gift, and the price bade pay in gold for him whom Grendel erst murdered, and fain of them more had killed, had not wisest God their weird averted, and the man's brave mood. The Maker then ruled humankind, as here and now. Therefore is insight always best, and forethought of mind. How much awaits him of lief and of loath, who long time here, through days of warfare this world endures. Then song and music mingled sounds in the presence of Halfdane's head of armies, and harping was heard with the hero lay as Hrothgar's singer the hall joy woke along the mead seats, making his song of that sudden raid on the sons of Finn. Halfdane's hero, Hinaf the Scylding, was fated to fall in the Frisian slaughter. Hildebert needed not hold in value her enemy's honor. Innocent both were the loved ones she lost at the linden play. Bairn and brother, they bowed to fate, stricken by spears. 'Twas a sorrowful woman. None doubted why the daughter of Hok bewailed her doom when dawning came, and under the sky she saw them lying, kinsmen murdered, where most she had kenned of the sweets of the world. By war were swept too Finn's own liegemen, and few were left. In the parleying place he could ply no longer weapon, nor war could he wage on Hengest, and rescue his remnant by right of arms from the prince's thane. A pact he offered. Another dwelling the Danes should have, hall and high seat, and half the power should fall to them in Frisian land. And at the fee-gifts Folkwald's son day by day the Danes should honor, the folk of Hengest favor with rings, even as truly with treasure and jewels with fretted gold, as his Frisian kin he meant to honor in ale hall there. Pact of peace they plighted further on both sides firmly. Finn to Hengest with oath upon honor openly promised that woeful remnant, with wise men's aid, nobly to govern, so none of the guests by word or work should warp the treaty, or with malice of mind bemoan themselves as forced to follow their fee-giver's slayer, lordless men, as their lot ordained. Should Frisian, moreover, with foeman's taunt that murderous hatred to mind recall, then edge of the sword must seal his doom. Oaths were given, and ancient gold heaped from hoard. The hardy Scylding, battle-thane best, on his bale fire lay. All on the pyre were plain to see the gory sark, the gilded swine crest, boar of hard iron, and athelings many slain by the sword. At the slaughter they fell. It was Hildeburh's hest, at Hinaf's own pyre, the bairn of her body on brands to lay, his bones to burn, on the balefire placed, at his uncle's side. In sorrowful dirges bewept them the woman, great wailing ascended. Then wound up to welcome the wildest of death fires, roared o'er the hillock, heads all were melted, gashes burst, and blood gushed out from bites of the body. Balefire devoured, greediest spirit, though spared not by war out of either folk, their flower was gone. 17. Then hastened those heroes their home to see, friendless to find the Frisian land, houses and high burr. Hengest still through the death-dyed winter dwelt with Finn, holding pact, yet of home he minded, though powerless his ring-decked prow to drive over the waters. Now waves rolled fierce lashed by the winds, or winter locked them in icy fetters. Then fared another year to men's dwellings, as yet they do, the sun-bright skies that their season ever duly await. Far off winter was driven, fair lay earth's breast, and fain was the rover, the guest to depart, though more gladly he pondered on wreaking his vengeance than roaming the deep, and how to hasten the hot encounter where sons of the Frisians were sure to be. So he escaped not the common doom, when Hun, with Laving, the light of battle best of blades, his bosom pierced, its edge was famed with the Frisian earls. On fierce heart Finn there fell likewise, on himself at home, the horrid sword death. For Guthlaf and Oslaf of grim attack had sorrowing told, from seaways landed, mourning their woes. Finn's wavering spirit bode not in breast. The burg was reddened with blood of foemen, and Finn was slain, king amid clansmen. The queen was taken. To their ship the Scylding warriors bore all the chattels the chieftain owned, whatever they found in Finn's domain of gems and jewels. Their gentle wife o'er paths of the deep to the Danes they bore, led her to land. The lay was finished, the gleeman's song. Then glad rose the revel, thence joy brightened. Bearers draw from their wonder vats wine. Comes Wealhtheow forth. Under gold crown goes where the good pair sit, uncle and nephew, true each to the other one, kindred in amity. Unferth, the spokesman at the Scylding lord's feet sat. Men had faith in his spirit, his keenness of courage, though kinsmen had found him unsure at the swordplay. The Scylding queen spoke. Quaff of this cup, my king and lord, breaker of rings, and blithe be thou, gold friend of men. To the Geats here speak such words of mildness as man should use. Be glad with thy Geats, of those gifts be mindful, or near or far, which now thou hast. Men say to me, as son thou wishest yon hero to hold, thy hero rod purged, jewel hall brightest, enjoy while thou canst, with many a largess, and leave to thy kinfolk and realm, when forth thou goest to greet thy doom. For gracious I deem my Hrothulf, willing to hold and rule nobly our youths, if thou yield up first, Prince of Scyldings, thy part in the world. I ween with good he will well requite offspring of ours, when all he minds, that for him we did in his helpless days of gift and grace to gain him honor. Then she turned to the seat where her sons were placed, Herethrich and Hrothmund, with heroes' bairns, young men together. The Geat too sat there, Beowulf brave, the brothers between. 18. A cup she gave him, with kindly greeting and winsome words. Of wound in gold she offered to honor him armed jewels twain, corselet and rings, and of collars the noblest that ever I knew the earth around. Ne'er heard I so mighty neath heaven's dome, a hoard gem of heroes, since Hama bore to his bright-built burg the Brising's necklace, jewel, and gem casket. Jealously fled he ere Manrich's hate, chose help eternal. Huyalak Geat, grandson of Swerting, on the last of his raids, this ring bore with him, under his banner the booty defending, the war spoil warding. But weird o'erwhelmed him what time, in his daring dangers he sought feud with Frisians. Fairest of gems he bore with him over the breaker of waves, sovereign strong. Under shield he died. Fell the corpse of the king into keeping of Franks, gear of the breast, and that gorgeous ring, weaker warriors won the spoil after grip of battle from Geatland's lord and held the death field. Din rose in hall, while Theo spake amid warriors and said,
This jewel enjoy in thy jocund youth, Beowulf loved. These battle weeds wear, a royal treasure, and richly thrive. Preserve thy strength, and these striplings hear counsel and kindness. Requital be mine. Hast done such deeds that for days to come thou art famed among folk both far and near, so wide as washeth the wave of ocean his windy walls. Through the ways of life prosper, O Prince. I pray for thee rich possessions. To son of mine be helpful indeed, and uphold his joys. Here every earl to the other is true, mild of mood, to the master loyal. Thanes are friendly, the throng obedient, liegemen are reveling, list and obey.
Went then to her place, that was proudest of feasts, flowed wine for the warriors. Weird they knew not, destiny dire, and the doom to be seen by many an earl when eve should come, and Hrothgar homeward hastened away, royal to rest. The room was guarded by an army of earls, as erst was done. They bared the bench boards, abroad they spread beds and bolsters. One beer carouser in danger of doom lay down in the hall. At their heads they set their shields of war, bucklers bright. On the bench were there over each atheling, easy to see, the high battle helmet, the haughty spear, the corselet of rings. 'Twas their custom so ever to be for battle prepared, at home or harrying, which it were, even as oft as evil threatened their sovereign king. They were clansmen good. 19. Then sank they to sleep. With sorrow one bought his rest of the evening, as oft time had happened when Grendel guarded that golden hall, evil wrought till his end drew nigh, slaughter for sins. 'Twas seen and told how an avenger survived the fiend, as was learned afar. The livelong time after that grim fight, Grendel's mother, monster of women, mourned her woe. She was doomed to dwell in the dreary waters, cold sea-courses, since Cain cut down with edge of the sword his only brother, his father's offspring. Outlawed he fled, marked with murder, from men's delights warded the wilds. There woke from him such fate-sent ghosts as Grendel, who war-wolf horrid at Heorot found a warrior watching and waiting the fray, with whom the grisly one grappled amain. But the man remembered his mighty power, the glorious gift that God had sent him. In his Maker's mercy put his trust for comfort and help. So he conquered the foe, felled the fiend, who fled abject, reft of joy, to the realms of death, mankind's foe. And his mother now, gloomy and grim, would go that quest of sorrow, the death of her son to avenge. To Heorot came she, where helmeted Danes slept in the hall. Too soon came back old ills of the earls, when in she burst, the mother of Grendel. Less grim, though, that terror, e'en as terror of woman in war is less, might have made than of men in arms, when hammer forged the falchion hard, sword gore-stained, through swine of the helm, crested with keen blade carves amain. Then was in the hall the hard edge drawn, the swords on the settles, and shields a many firm held in hand. Nor helmet minded, nor harness of mail, whom that horror seized. Haste was hers, she would hie afar, and save her life when the liegemen saw her. Yet a single atheling up she seized fast and firm, as she fled to the moor. He was for Hrothgar of heroes the dearest, of trusty vassals betwixt the seas, whom she killed on his couch, a clansman famous, in battle brave. Nor was Beowulf there. Another house had been held apart, after giving up gold for the Geat renowned. Uproar filled Heorot, the hand all had viewed, blood-flecked she bore with her. Bale was returned, dole in the dwelling. 'Twas dire exchange where Dane and Geat were doomed to give the lives of loved ones. Long-tried king, the hoary hero, at heart was sad, when he knew his noble no more lived, and dead indeed was his dearest thane. To his bower was Beowulf brought in haste, dauntless victor. As daylight broke, along with his earls, the atheling lord, with his clansmen, came where the king abode, waiting to see if the wielder of all would turn this tale of trouble and woe. Strode o'er the floor the famed in strife, with his hand companions the hall resounded, wishing to greet the wise old king, Ingwain's lord. He asked if the night had passed in peace to the prince's mind. 20. Hrothgar spake, helmet of Scyldings. Ask not of pleasure. Pain is renewed to Danish folk. Dead is Achere of Ermenlaf, the elder brother, my sage adviser and stay in council. Show the comrade in stress of fight when warriors clashed and we warded our heads, hewed the helm bores. Hero of fame should be every earl as Achere was, but here in Heorot a hand hath slain him of wandering death sprite. I wot not whither, proud of the prey her path she took, fain of her fill. The feud she avenged that yesternight unyieldingly, Grendel and grimmest grasp thou killedst, seeing how long these liegemen mine he ruined and ravaged, reft of life, in arms he fell. Now another comes, keen and cruel, her kin to avenge, faring far in feud of blood, so that many a thane shall think, whoe'er sorrows and soul for that sharer of rings, this is hardest of heart bales. The hand lies low, that once was willing, each wish to please. Land dwellers here and liegemen mine, who house by those parts, I have heard relate that such a pair they have sometimes seen, march stalkers, mighty the moorlands haunting, wandering spirits. One of them seemed, so far as my folk could fairly judge, of womankind, and one, accursed, and man's guise, trod the misery track of exile, though huger than human bulk. Grendel in days long gone they named him, folk of the land. His father they knew not, nor any brood that was born to him of treacherous spirits. Untrod is their home, by wolf cliffs hot, they and windy headlands, fenways fearful, where flows the stream from mountains gliding to gloom of the rocks, underground flood. Not far is it hence in measure of miles that the mere expands, and o'er the frost-bound forest hanging, sturdily rooted shadows the wave. By night is a wonder weird to see fire on the waters. So wise lived none of the sons of men to search those depths. Nay, though the heath rover, harried by dogs, the horn-proud hart, this holt should seek. Long distance driven his dear life first on the brink he yields, ere he brave the plunge to hide his head. 'Tis no happy place. Thence the welter of waters washes up one to welcome when winds bestir evil storms, and air grows dusk, and the heavens weep. Now is help once more with thee alone. The land thou know'st not, place of fear, where thou findest out that sin-flecked being. Seek, if thou dare. I will reward thee for waging this fight, with ancient treasure as erst I did, with winding gold, if thou winnest back. 21. Beowulf spake, bairn of Edgetheow. Sorrow not, sage. It beseems us better friends to avenge than fruitlessly mourn them. Each of us all must his end abide in the ways of the world. So win who may, glory ere death, when his days are told. That is the warrior's worthiest doom. Rise, O realm warder, ride we anon, and mark the trail of the mother of Grendel. No harbor shall hide her, heed my promise. Enfolding a field or forested mountain, or floor of the flood, let her flee where she will. But thou this day endure in patience, as I ween thou wilt, thy woes each one. Leaped up the greybeard. God he thanked, mighty lord, for the man's brave words. For Hrothgar soon a horse was saddled, wave-manned steed. The sovereign wise stately rode on, his shield-armed men followed in force. The footprints led along the woodland, widely seen, a path o'er the plain where she passed, and trod the murky moor. Of men-at-arms she bore the bravest and best one, dead, him who with Hrothgar the homestead ruled. On then went the atheling-born, o'er stone cliffs steep and straight defiles, narrow passes and unknown ways, headlands sheer and the haunts of the Nickers. Foremost he fared, a few at his side of the wiser men, the ways to scan, till he found in a flash the forested hill hanging over the hoary rock, a woeful wood. The waves below were dyed in blood. The Danish men had sorrow of soul, and for Scyldings all, for many a hero, 'twas hard to bear, ill for earls. When Achere's head they found by the flood on the foreland there. Waves were welling, the warriors saw, hot with blood. But the horn sang oft battle song bold. The band sat down and watched on the water worm-like things, sea dragons strange that sounded the deep, and knickers that lay on the ledge of the ness, such as oft essay at hour of morn on the road of sails their ruthless quest, and sea snakes and monsters. These started away, swollen and savage, that song to hear, that war horns blast, the warden of Geats with bolt from bow, then balked of life, of wavework, one monster amid its heart went the keen war shaft. In water it seemed less doughty in swimming, whom death had seized. Swift on the billows, with boar spears well, hooked and barbed, it was hard beset, done to death and dragged on the headland. Wave roamer wondrous, warriors viewed the grisly guest. Then girt him Beowulf in martial mail, nor mourned for his life. His breastplate broad and bright of hues, woven by hand should the waters try. Well could it ward the warrior's body that battle should break on his breast in vain, nor harm his heart by the hand of a foe. And the helmet, white that his head protected, was destined to dare the deeps of the flood. Through wave whirlwind, 'twas wound with chains decked with gold, as in days of yore the weaponsmith worked it wondrously. With swine forms set it, that swords nowise brandished in battle could bite that helm. Nor was that the meanest of mighty helps which Hrothgar's orator offered at need. Hrunting they named the hilted sword, of old time heirlooms easily first. Iron was its edge, all etched with poison, with battle blood hardened, nor blenched it at fight in hero's hand who held it ever, on paths of peril prepared to go to folkstead of foes. Not first time this it was destined to do a daring task, for he bore not in mind the bairn of Ecglaf, sturdy and strong, that speech he had made, drunk with wine. Now this weapon he lent to a stouter swordsman. Himself, though, durst not under welter of waters wager his life as loyal liegeman. So lost he his glory, honor of earls, with the other not so, who girded him now for the grim encounter. 22. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. Have mind, thou honored offspring of Halfdene, gold friend of men. Now I go on this quest sovereign wise. What once was said, if in thy cause it came that I should lose my life, thou wouldst loyal bide to me, though fallen in father's place. Be guardian thou to this group of my thanes, my warrior friends, if war should seize me. And the goodly gifts thou gavest me, Hrothgar beloved, to who ye lack send. Geatland's king may ken by the gold Herethel's son see, when he stares at the treasures that I got me a friend for goodness famed, and joyed while I could in my jewel bestowed. And let Unferth wield this wondrous sword, earl far honored, this heirloom precious hard of edge. With Hrunting I seek doom of glory, or death shall take me. After these words the Watergate lord boldly hastened, biding never answer at all. The ocean floods closed o'er the hero. Long while of the day fled ere he felt the floor of the sea. Soon found the fiend who the flood domain's sword-hungry held these 100 winters, greedy and grim, that some guest from above, some man, was raiding her monster realm. She grasped out for him with grisly claws, and the warrior seized, yet scathed she not his body hale. The breastplate hindered, as she strove to shatter the sark of war, the linked harness with loathsome hand. Then bore this brine wolf, when bottom she touched, the lord of rings to the lair she haunted, whilst vainly he strove, though his valor held, weapon to wield against wondrous monsters that sore beset him. Sea beasts many tried with fierce tusks to tear his mail, and swarmed on the stranger, but soon he marked he was now in some hall, he knew not which, where water never could work him harm, nor through the roof could reach him ever fangs of the flood. firelight he saw beams of a blaze that brightly shone. Then the warrior was ware of that wolf of the deep, mere-wife monstrous. For mighty stroke he swung his blade, and the blow withheld not, then sang on her head that seemly blade its war song wild. But the warrior found the light of battle was loath to bite, to harm the heart. Its hard edge failed the noble at need, yet had known of old strife hand to hand, and had helmets cloven, doomed men's fighting gear. First time this for the gleaming blade that its glory fell. Firm still stood, nor failed in valor, heedful of high deeds Huyalak's kinsman. Flung away fretted sword, featly jeweled the angry earl. On earth it lay steel-edged and stiff. His strength he trusted, hand grip of might. So man shall do whenever in war he weens to earn him lasting fame, nor fears for his life. Seized then by shoulder, shrank not from combat, the Geatish war prince Grendel's mother. Flung then the fierce one, filled with wrath, his deadly foe, that she fell to ground. Swift on her part she paid him back with grisly grasp, and grappled with him. Spent with struggle, stumbled the warrior, fiercest of fighting men, fell adown. On the hall guest she hurled herself, hent her short sword, broad and brown-edged, the bairn to avenge, the sole-born son. On his shoulder lay braided breastmail, barring death, withstanding entrance of edge or blade. Life would have ended for Ecgtheow's son, under wide earth for that Earl of Geats, had his armor of war not aided him, battle net hard, and holy God wielded the victory, wisest maker. The Lord of Heaven allowed his cause, and easily rose the Earl erect. 23. Mid the battle gear saw he a blade triumphant, old sword of Jotun's, with edge of proof, warrior's heirloom, weapon unmatched, save only 'twas more than other men to bandy of battle could bear at all, as the giants had wrought it, ready and keen. Seized then its chain hilt the Scyldings' chieftain, bold and battle grim, brandished the sword, reckless of life, and so wrathfully smote that it gripped her neck and grasped her hard, her bone rings breaking. The blade pierced through that fated one's flesh. To floor she sank, bloody the blade. He was blithe of his deed. Then blazed forth light. 'Twas bright within, as when from the sky there shines unclouded heaven's candle. The hall he scanned. By the wall then went he, his weapon raised high by its hilt the Huyalak Thane, angry and eager. That edge was not useless to the warrior now. He wished with speed Grendel to guerdon for grim raids many, for the war he waged on western Danes oftener far than an only time, when of Hrothgar's hearth companions he slew in slumber, in sleep devoured 15 men of the folk of Danes, and as many others outward bore his horrible prey. Well paid for that the wrathful prince, for now prone he saw Grendel stretched there, spent with war, spoiled of life, so scathed had left him Heorot's battle. The body sprang far when after death it endured the blow, sword stroke savage that severed its head. Soon then saw the sage companions who waited with Hrothgar, watching the flood, that the tossing waters turbid grew, blood stained the mere. Old men together, hoary-haired, of the hero spake. The warrior would not, they weened, again, proud of conquest come to seek their mighty master. To many it seemed the wolf of the waves had won his life. The 9th hour came. The noble Scyldings left the headland. Homeward went the gold friend of men. But the guests sat on, stared at the surges, sick in heart, and wished, yet weened not, their winsome lord again to see. Now that sword began, from blood of the fight, in battle droppings, war blade to wane. 'Twas a wondrous thing, that all of it melted, as ice is wont, when frosty fetters the Father loosens, unwinds the wave bonds, wielding all seasons and times. The true God he, nor took from that dwelling the Duke of the Geats, save only the head, and that hilt withal blazoned with jewels. The blade had melted, burned was the bright sword. Her blood was so hot, so poisoned the hell sprite who perished within there. Soon he was swimming who safe saw in combat downfall of demons. Up dove through the flood. The clashing waters were cleansed now, waste of waves, where the wandering fiend her life days left, and this lapsing world, swam then to strand this sailor's refuge, sturdy in spirit, of sea booty glad, of burden brave he bore with him. When then to greet him, and God they thanked, the Thane band choice of their chieftain blithe, that safe and sound they could see him again. Soon from the hardy one helmet and armor deftly they doffed. Now drowsed the mere, water neath welkin with war blood stained. Forth they fared by the footpaths thence, merry at heart the highways measured well-known roads. Courageous men carried the head from the cliff by the sea, an arduous task for all the band, the firm in fight, since 4 were needed on the shaft of slaughter, strenuously to bear to the gold hall Grendel's head. So presently to the palace their foemen fearless 14 Geats marching came. The master of clan mighty amid them the meadow ways trod. Strode then within the sovereign Thane, fearless in fight, a fame-renowned hardy hero, Hrothgar to greet. And next by the hair into the hall was borne Grendel's head, where the henchmen were drinking, an awe to clan and queen alike, a monster of marvel. The men looked on. 24 and 25. Beowulf spake, bairn of Edgetheow. Lo, now this sea-booty son of Halfdana, lord of Scyldings, we've lustily brought thee, sign of glory. Thou seest it here, not lightly did I with my life escape. In war, under water this work I essayed with endless effort, and even so my strength had been lost had the Lord not shielded me. Not a whit could I with hunting do in work of war, though the weapon is good. Yet a sword of the sovereign of men vouchsafe me to spy on the wall there, in splendor hanging, old, gigantic. How oft he guides the friendless wight, and I fought with that brand, felling in fight, since fate was with me, the house's wardens. That war sword, then all burned, bright blade, when the blood gushed o'er it, battle sweat hot, but the hilt I brought back from my foes. So avenged I their fiendish deeds, death fall of Danes, as was due and right. And this is my hest, that in Heorot now safe thou canst sleep with thy soldier band, and every thane of all thy folk both old and young. No evil fear, Scyldings' lord, from that side again, aught ill for thy earls, as erst thou must. Then the golden hilt for that grey-haired leader, hoary hero, in hand was laid, giant wrought, old. So owned, and enjoyed it after downfall of devils, the Danish lord, wondersmith's work, since the world was rid of that grim-souled fiend, the foe of God, murder-marked, and his mother as well. Now it passed into power of the people's king. Best of all, that the oceans bound who have scattered their gold o'er Scandia's isle. Hrothgar spake, the hilt he viewed, heirloom old, where was etched the rise of that far-off fight when the floods o'erwhelmed, raging waves, the race of giants, fearful their fate, a folk estranged from God eternal, whence guerdon due in that waste of waters the wielder paid them. So on the guard of shining gold and runic staves, it was rightly said, for whom the serpent-traced sword was wrought, best of blades, in bygone days, and the hilt well wound. The wise one spake, son of Halfdana, silent were all. Lo, so may he say who sooth and right follows mid folk, of far times mindful, a land warden owed, that this earl belongs to the better breed. So borne aloft thy fame must fly, O friend my Beowulf, far and wide o'er folksteads many. Firmly thou shalt all maintain, mighty strength with mood of wisdom. Love of mine will I assure thee, as a while ago I promised. Thou shalt prove a stay in future, in far-off years to folk of thine, to the heroes a help. Was not Heremod thus to offspring of Edgewaila honor Scyldings, nor grew for their grace, but for grisly slaughter, for doom of death to the Danishmen? He slew wrath-swollen his shoulder comrades, companions at board. So he passed alone, chieftain haughty, from human cheer, though him the Maker with might endowed, delights of power, and uplifted high above all men, yet blood-fierce his mind, His breast hoard grew, no bracelets gave he to Danes as was due. He endured all joyless strain of struggle and stress of woe, long feud with his folk. Here find thy lesson, a virtue advise thee. This verse I have said for thee, wise from lapsed winters. Wondrous seems how to sons of men Almighty God, in the strength of his spirit, sendeth wisdom, estate, high station. He swayeth all things, whiles he letteth right lustily fare the heart of the hero of high-born race. In seat ancestral assigns him bliss, his folk's sure fortress and fee to hold, puts in his power great parts of the earth, empire so ample, that end of it this wanter of wisdom weeneth none. So he waxes in wealth, no wise can harm him illness or age. No evil cares shadow his spirit, no sword hate threatens from ever an enemy. All the world wends at his will, no worse he knoweth, till all within him obstinate pride waxes and wakes, while the warden slumbers, the spirit sentry. Sleep is too fast which masters his might, and the murderer nears, stealthily shooting the shafts from his bow. Under harness his heart then is hit indeed by sharpest shafts, and no shelter avails from foul behest of the hellish fiend. Him seems too little what long he possessed. Greedy and grim, no golden rings he gives for his pride. The promised future forgets he and spurns, with all God has sent him, wonder wielder of wealth and fame. Yet in the end it ever comes that the frame of the body fragile yields, fated falls, and there follows another who joyously the jewels divides, the royal riches, nor recks of his forebear. Then, such baleful thoughts Beowulf, dearest, best of men, and the better part choose, prophet eternal, and temper thy pride, warrior famous. The flower of thy might lasts now a while, but ere long it shall be that sickness or sword thy strength shall minish, or fang of fire, or flooding billow, or bite of blade, or brandished spear, or odious age, or the eye's clear beam wax dull and darken. Death even thee in haste shall o'erwhelm, thou hero of war. So the Ring-Danes these half-years 100 I ruled, wielded neath welkin, and warded them bravely from mighty ones many o'er the middle earth, from spear and sword, till it seemed for me no foe could be found under fold of the sky. Lo, sudden the shift, to me seated secure came grief for joy, when Grendel began to harry my home, the hellish foe. For those ruthless raids, unresting I suffered heart sorrow heavy. Heaven be thanked, Lord eternal, for life extended that I on this head all hewn and bloody, after long evil with eyes may gaze. Go to the bench now, be glad at banquet warrior worthy, a wealth of treasure at dawn of day be dealt between us. Glad was the Geat's lord, going betimes to seek his seat, as the sage commanded, afresh as before, for the famed in battle. For the band of the hall was a banquet dight nobly anew. The night helm darkened dusk o'er the drinkers. The doughty ones rose, for the hoary-headed would hasten to rest, aged shouldering, and eager the Geat, shield fighter sturdy, for sleeping yearned. Him wander-weary warrior guest from afar, a hall thane heralded forth, who by custom courtly cared for all needs of a thane, as in those old days warrior wanders wont to have. So slumbered the stoutheart. Stately the hall rose gabled and gilt, where the guest slept on till a raven black the rapture of heaven blithe heart boded. Bright came flying shine after shadow. The swordsman hastened, aethelings all were eager homeward forth to fare, and far from thence the great-hearted guest would guide his keel. Bade then the hardy one runting to be brought to the son of Edgelaf. The sword bade him take, excellent iron, and uttered his thanks for it, quoth that he counted it keen in battle, war-friend winsome. With words he slandered not edge of the blade. 'Twas a big-hearted man. Now eager for parting, and armed at point warriors waited, while went to his host that darling of Danes, The doughty atheling to high seat hastened, and Hrothgar greeted. 26. Beowulf spake, bairn of Edgethale. Lo, we seafarers say our will. Far come men that we fain would seek Hugelac now. We here have found hosts to our heart. Thou hast harbored us well. If ever on earth I am able to win me more of thy love, O Lord of men, aught anew, than I now have done, for work of war I am willing still. If it come to me ever across the seas that neighbor foemen annoy and fright thee, as they that hate thee erewhile have used, thousands then of thanes I shall bring, heroes to help thee. Of Hugelac I know, ward of his folk, that though few his years, the Lord of the Geats will give me aid by word and by work, that well I may serve thee, wielding the war wood to win thy triumph, and lending thee might when thou lackest men. If Herethreach should come to court of Geats, a sovereign's son, he will surely there find his friends. A far-off land each man should visit who vaunts him brave. Him then answering, Hrothgar spake,
These words of thine the wisest God sent to thy soul. No sager counsel from so young in years ere yet have I heard. Thou art strong of main, and in mind art wary, art wise in words. I ween indeed if ever it hap that Herethil's heir by spear be seized, by sword grim battle, by illness or iron, thine elder and lord, people's leader, and life be thine. No seemlier man will the Sea-Geats find at all to choose for their chief and king, for hoard god of heroes, if hold thou wilt thy kinsman's kingdom. Thy keen mind pleases me the longer the better, Beowulf loved. Thou hast brought it about that both our peoples, sons of the Geat and Speardane folk, shall have mutual peace, and from murderous strife such as once they waged, from war refrain. Long as I rule this realm so wide, let our hordes be common. Let heroes with gold each other greet o'er the gannet's bath, and the ringed prow bear o'er rolling waves tokens of love. I trow my landfolk towards friend and foe are firmly joined, and honor they keep in the olden way.
To him in the hall, then Halfdan's son gave treasures 12, and the trust of earls bade him fare with the gifts to his folk beloved, hail to his home, and in haste return, then kiss the king of kin renown, Scylding's chieftain, that choicest thane, and fell on his neck. Fast flowed the tears of the hoary-headed. Heavy with winters he had chances twain, but he clung to this, that each should look on the other again, and hear him in hall. Was this hero so dear to him? His breast's wild billows he banned in vain. Safe in his soul a secret longing, locked in his mind, for that loved man burned in his blood. Then Beowulf strode, glad of his gold gifts, the grass plot o'er, warrior blithe. The wave roamer bode riding at anchor, its owner awaiting. As they hastened onward, Hrothgar's gift they lauded at length. 'Twas a lord unpeered, every way blameless, till age had broken, it spareth no mortal, his splendid might. 27. Came now to ocean the ever-courageous hardy henchmen, their harness bearing, woven war sarks. The warden marked, trusty as ever, the earl's return. From the height of the hill, no hostile words reached the guests as he rode to greet them. But, "Welcome!" he called to that waiter clan as the sheen-mailed spoilers to ship marched on. Then on the strand, with steeds and treasure in their armor, their roomy and ring-dight ship was heavily laden. High its mast rose over Hrothgar's hoarded gems. A sword to the boat-guard Beowulf gave, mounted with gold. On the mead bench since he was better esteemed, that blade possessing, heirloom old. Their ocean keel boarding they drove through the deep, and Dane land left. A sea cloth was set, a sail with ropes firm to the mast. The flood timbers moaned, nor did wind over billows that wave swimmer blow across from her course. The craft sped on, foam-necked it floated forth o'er the waves, keel firm bound over briny currents, till they got them sight of the Geatish cliffs, home-known headlands. High the boat, stirred by winds, on the strand uptrove. Helpful at haven the harbor guard stood, who long already for loved companions by the water had waited and watched afar. He bound to the beach the broad-bosomed ship with anchor bands, lest ocean billows that trusty timber should tear away. Then Beowulf bade them bear the treasure, gold and jewels. No journey far was it thence to go to the giver of rings, Hugelac Hrethling. At home he dwelt by the sea-wall close, himself and clan. Haughty that house, a hero the king, high the hall, and Hugid right young, wise and wary, though winters few in those fortress walls she had found a home, Hereth's daughter. Nor humble her ways, nor grudged she gifts to the Geatish men, of precious treasure. Not Thruth's pride showed she, folk queen famed, or that fell deceit. Was none so daring that durst make bold, save her lord alone. Of the liegeman dear that lady full in the face to look, but forged fetters he found his lot, bonds of death, and brief the respite. Soon as they seized him, his sword doom was spoken, and the burnished blade a baleful murder proclaimed and closed. No queenly way for woman to practice, though peerless she, that the weaver of peace from warrior dear by wrath and lying his life should reave. But Hemming's kinsmen hindered this, for over their ale men also told that of these folk horrors fewer she wrought, onslaughts of evil after she went, gold-decked bride, to the brave young prince, atheling haughty, and Offa's hall o'er the fallow flood at her father's bidding safely sought, where since she prospered, royal, throned, rich in goods, fain of the fair life fate had sent her, and leal in love to the lord of warriors. He of all heroes I heard of ever from sea to sea, of the sons of earth, most excellent seemed. Hence Offa was praised for his fighting and feeing by far-off men, the spear-bold warrior. Wisely he ruled over his empire. Eomer woke to him, help of heroes, Hemming's kinsman, grandson of Garmund, grim in war. 28 and 29. Hastened the hardy one, henchman with him, sandy strand of the sea to tread, and widespread ways. The world's great candle, sun shone from the south. They strode along with sturdy steps to the spot they knew where the battle king young, his burg within, slayer of Ongenthale, shared the ring's shelter of heroes. To Hugelac, Beowulf's coming was quickly told, that there in the court the clansmen's refuge, the shield companions sound and alive, hail from the hero play homeward strode, with haste in the hall by highest order, room for the rovers was readily made. By his sovereign he sat, come safe from battle, kinsman by kinsman. His kindly lord he first had greeted in gracious form, with manly words. The mead dispensing came through the high hall, Hareth's daughter, winsome to warriors, wine cup bore to the hands of the heroes. Hugelac then his comrade fairly with question plied in the lofty hall, sore longing to know what manner of sojourn the sea geats made. What came of thy quest, my kinsman Beowulf, when thy yearnings suddenly swept thee yonder battle to seek o'er the briny sea, combat in Heorot? Hrothgar, couldst thou aid at all, the honoured chief, in his wide-known woes? With waves of care my sad heart seethed. I sore mistrusted my loved one's venture. Long I begged thee by no means to seek that slaughtering monster, but suffer the South Danes to settle their feud themselves with Grendel. Now God be thanked that safe and sound I can see thee now. Beowulf spake, the Bairn of Ecgtheow. 'Tis known and unhidden, Hugelac lord, to many men that meeting of ours, struggle grim between Grendel and me, which we fought on the field where full too many sorrows he wrought for the shielding victors, evils unending. These all I avenged. No boast can be from breed of Grendel any on earth, for that uproar at dawn from the longest-lived of the loathsome race in fleshy fold. But first I went Hrothgar to greet in the hall of gifts, where Halfdan's kinsman high-renowned. Soon as my purpose was plain to him, assigned me a seat by his son and heir. The liegemen were lusty, my life days, never such merry men over mead and hall have I heard under heaven. The high-born queen, people's peace-bringer, passed through the hall, cheered the young clansmen, clasps of gold, ere she sought her seat. to sundry gave. Oft to the heroes Hrothgar's daughter, to earls in turn the ale cup tendered. She whom I heard these hall companions Freawaru name, when fretted gold she proffered the warriors. Promised is she, gold-decked maid, to the glad son of Froda. Sage this seems to the Scyldings' friend, kingdom's keeper. He counts it wise the woman to wed so, and ward off feud, store of slaughter. But seldom ever when men are slain does the murder spear sink but briefest while, though the bride be fair. Nor haply will like it the Heathobard lord, and as little each of his liegemen all, when a thane of the Danes in that doughty throng goes with the lady along their hall, and on him the old-time heirlooms glisten hard and ring-decked, Heathobard's treasure, weapons that once they wielded fair until they lost at the linden play liegeman leal, and their lives as well. Then over the ale, on this heirloom gazing, some ash-wielder old, who has all in mind that spear death of men. He is stern of mood, heavy at heart. In the hero young, tests the temper and tries the soul, and war-hate wakens with words like these. Canst thou not, comrade, ken that sword, which to the fray thy father carried in his final feud, neath the fighting mask dearest of blades, when the Danish slew him and wielded the war place on Withergild's fall, after havoc of heroes, those hardy Scyldings. Now the son of a certain slaughtering Dane, proud of his treasure, paces this hall, joys in the killing, and carries the jewel that rightfully ought to be owned by thee. Thus he urges and eggs him all the time with keenest words, till occasion offers that Freawaru's thane, for his father's deed, after bite of brand in his blood must slumber, losing his life, but that liegeman flies, living away, for the land he kens. And thus be broken on both their sides oaths of the earls, when Ingild's breast wells with war-hate, and wife-love now after the care billows cooler grows. So I hold not high the Heathobard's faith due to the Danes, or their during love and pacts of peace. But I pass from that, turning to Grendel, O giver of treasure, and sang in full how the fight resulted, and fray of heroes. When heaven's jewel had fled o'er far fields, that fierce sprite came, night foe savage, to seek us out where safe and sound we sentried the hall. To Hansio then was that harassing deadly, his fall there was fated. He first was slain, girded warrior. Grendel on him turned murderous mouth, on our mighty kinsman, and all of the brave man's body devoured, yet none the earlier, empty-handed, with the bloody-toothed murderer, mindful of bale, outward go from the gold-decked hall. But me he attacked in his terror of might, with greedy hand grasped me. A glove hung by him wide and wondrous, wound with bands, and in artful wise it was all wrought, by devilish craft of dragon skins. Me, therein, an innocent man, the fiendish foe was fain to thrust with many another. He might not so, when I all angrily upright stood. 'Twere long to relate how that land destroyer I paid in kind for his cruel deeds. Yet there, my prince, this people of thine got fame by my fighting. He fled away, and a little space his life preserved, but there stayed behind him his stronger hand left in Heorot. Heartsick thence on the floor of the ocean that outcast fell. Me for the struggle the Scyldings' friend paid in plenty with plates of gold, with many a treasure. When morn had come and we all at the banquet board sat down, then was song and glee. The grey-haired Scylding, much tested, told of the times of yore, whilst the hero his harp bestirred, wood of delight. Now lays he chanted of sooth and sadness, or said aright legends of wonder, the wide-hearted king, or for years of his youth he would yearn at times, for strength of old struggles, now stricken with age. Hoary hero, his heart surged full when, wise with winters, he wailed their flight. Thus in the hall the whole of that day at ease we feasted, till fell o'er earth another night. Anon, full ready in greed of vengeance, Grendel's mother set forth all doleful. Dead was her son, through war-hate of waders. Now, woman monstrous with fury fell a foeman she slew, avenged her offspring. from Achere old, loyal counselor, life was gone. Nor might they e'en, when morning broke, those Danish people. Their death-done comrade burned with brands, on balefire lay the man they mourned. Under mountain stream she had carried the corpse with cruel hands. For Hrothgar that was the heaviest sorrow of all that had laden the lord of his folk. The leader then by life besought me, sad was his soul, in the sea waves coil to play the hero and hazard my being for glory of prowess. My guerdon he pledged. I then in the waters, 'tis widely known, that sea-floor guardian savage found. Hand to hand, there a while we struggled. Billows welled blood. In the briny hall her head I hewed with the hardy blade from Grendel's mother, and gained my life, though not without danger. My doom was not yet. Then the haven of heroes, half Danish son, gave me in guerdon great gifts of price. So held this king to the customs old, that I wanted for naught in the wage I gained, the meed of my might. He made me gifts, half Danish heir, for my own disposal. Now to thee, my prince, I proffer them all, gladly give them. Thy grace alone can find me favor. Few indeed have I of kinsmen, save who you lack thee. Then he bade them bear him the boar-head standard, the battle helm high, and breastplate grey, the splendid sword, then spake in form. Me this war gear the wise old prince Hrothgar gave, and his hest he added, that its story be straightway said to thee, awhile it was held by Heorogar king, for long time lord of the land of Scyldings, yet not to his son the sovereign left it, to daring Heorward. Dear as he was to him, his harness of battle, well hold thou it all. And I heard that soon passed o'er the path of this treasure all Apple-fallow, 4 good steeds, each like the others. Arms and horses he gave to the king. So should kinsmen be, not weave one another the net of wiles, or with deep-hid treachery death contrive for neighbor and comrade. His nephew was ever by the hardy Hugelac held full dear, and each kept watch o'er the other's weal. I heard too the necklace of Huyid he presented, wonder-wrought treasure, what Wealhtheow gave him, sovereign's daughter. 3 steeds he added, slender and saddle gay. Since such gift the gem gleamed bright on the breast of the queen. Thus showed his strain the son of Ecgtheow as a man remarked for mighty deeds and acts of honor. At ale he slew not comrade or kin, nor cruel his mood, though of sons of earth his strength was greatest, a glorious gift that God had sent this splendid leader. Long was he spurned and worthless by Geatish warriors held. Him at mead the master of clans failed full oft to favor at all. Slack and shiftless the strong man deemed him, profitless prince, but payment came to the warrior honored for all his woes. Then the bulwark of earls bade bring within hardy chieftain Hrethel's heirloom garnished with gold. No Geater knew in shape of a sword a statelier prize. The brand he laid in Beowulf's lap, and of hides assigned him 7,000, with house and high seat. They held in common land alike by their line of birth, inheritance, home, but higher the king because of his rule o'er the realm itself. Now further it fell with the flight of years, with harryings horrid, that Hugelac perished, and Hardreed too, by hewing of swords under the shield wall slaughtered lay, when him at the ban of his victor folk sought hardy heroes, Heathosculfings, and arms o'erwhelming Heorich's nephew. Then Beowulf came as king, this broad realm to wield, and he ruled it well 50 winters, a wise old prince, warding his land, until one began in the dark of night, a dragon to rage. In the grave on the hill a horde it guarded, in the stone barrow steep, a straight path reached it, unknown to mortals. Some man, however, came by chance that cave within to the heathen horde. In hand he took a golden goblet, nor gave he it back, stole with it away, while the watchers slept by thievish wiles. For the warden's wrath, prince and people must pay betimes. And that's the end of part 1. Again, go and download Danheim's evocative work from danheimmusic.com. And if you're liking what I've done with the text here, then I invite you to go to theblessedepic.com and listen to the full cast, fully scored and sound-designed audiobook of my original work in rhyming verse, The Blessed. Here's a quick sample. Roll thunder, lightning strike, Empyrean weep. Let nature's fury ravage lands below, and keep all frightened souls from docile sleep, that they may view the Welkin's angry show. And there, beneath the grinding sky that roars and wails, a daring pilgrim through the raging water sails. Arrayed in sable cloak, the oars he plies, neither recoiling from the wind nor rain. He openly the surly surf defies, being of warlike stock, inured to pain. At length he runs ashore upon the sopping strand, and drags with ease his vessel up the turbid sand. He pulls a greatsword from his vessel's bed. 6 feet it stands, and double stone it weighs. The righteous man before it bows his head, and the corrupted man it gladly slays. Scalpel, his sword, atop his bulky frame he slings, then leaves his hollow ship and up the beachhead springs.
Virilus Magnus!
Sounded through the rain, a lonely voice pronouncing his dread name.
Virilus Magnus!
Came the voice again, seeking that hulking man of martial fame, whose warlike exploits had astounded hopeful ears, and driven the most villainous to dreadful tears. Mighty Virilus, in his stature huge, his title hears, and slows his racing gait. He scans the literal for subterfuge, being ever chary of the foeman's hate. Sure no trepan awaits to snare him on his way. He fills his spanning lungs, which gives him breath to say, "'Tis he whose name thou callst. Who is't that speaks?" If that seems like something you'd enjoy, head over and enjoy the first 15 chapters free. Also, subscribe at kylederekmcdonald.org for updates. Now, for part 2 of Beowulf, I'm Kyle McDonald.